Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf HaYomi, which is CHULLIN Daf Lamed Ches. We begin on the bottom of Lamed Zayin Amud Beis, 2 lines from the bottom. We begin with a story. Ashchechinu Shmuel encountered the students of Rav, L'talmidei of the Rav. Amar Lahu, he turns to them with a question. My Amar Rav b'Mesukenes. Can you please tell me what Rav, your Rebbe, had to say with respect to the sugya of Mesukenes? So this relates, of course, back to yesterday, where we learned about a Mesukenes, an animal which had been on the verge of death. The owner seizes the opportunity and does a quick shechita to salvage the animal, lest it turn into an avela and become asur. And we learned that technically it's okay. We proved it from multiple sources, provided you can confirm that in fact the animal's life was terminated by the shechita process, strictly by the shechita process, rather than just expiring midway. How do you do that? How do you prove that? There are these indicators that we spoke about. The animal had some contractions, some physical movement indications, which are considered clear demonstrations of a high degree of vitality during the shechita process, which indicates that in fact the animal did survive the process, so to speak, meaning it didn't just expire midway due to its extreme weakness. It was the shechita process that terminated an otherwise live animal. Okay, so he's asking them, what does Rav have to say about this discussion? Unrelated, they told him, actually Rav did tell us that there were 3 possible signs of life. We turn to the next page. It's either a goya, the animal expressed a mooing sound during the shechita, or vitila rei, attended to its needs. So it discharged its waste, v'kishkisha ba'azna, or it wiggled its ear. Harei pirchas, all these qualify as pirchas. Again, pirchas meaning these are indications. These are vitality indicators. And if they occur during the shechita, you know that the animal had sufficient life within it. And in fact, the shechita is what terminated its life. And it didn't just expire midway. Amar lahu. So Shmuel responds to them. That's pretty grand. It's Tzricha le Abba. He called Rav Abba. Derech Kavod, Rashi says. Some say actually that was Rav's true name. His name was Abba. So Abba, Rav, requires such a grand demonstration of vitality. Lazuzei, to move his ears, that takes a lot of effort. Rashi says, Chiyus Gadol Huzeh. That's a very high level of Chiyus. Why is that required to prove that in fact the animal was somewhat alive during the She'ani Omer? I maintain you don't need it to be so grand. As long as it's not just a reflexive act. Not just a manifestation of some neurological goings on in the animal. As long as it's not that, it's sufficient. As long as it's not something which happens as merely an expression of the animal expiring, some sort of reflexive expression. If it's anything above that, that's a show of vitality and that's enough. Can we have examples of indicators that do not qualify because they're merely expressions of the animal expiring? Omar of Anon, yeah. I heard it directly from Shmuel. It was explained to me, Minei, the Shmuel, by Shmuel himself. The animal's hand, for instance, had been bent. Upashtasa, and then it goes and it extends it, it straightens it out. that isn't a very significant move, that's considered davar shamisa oisa. That's merely, a throw of death. On the other hand, if it's a more expressive type of motion, pshuta, if the hand had been outstretched, v'kavafa, and the animal pulls it back and retracts it, that takes more effort. That is a show of life. Dvaram she'eina misa oisa, it's not something that just automatically happens as an expression of death. Ask the Gemara, okay, my kamashman, what's the point here? That retraction helps, extension doesn't? It's all in the Mishnah. Tanina, we had already learned this in the Mishnah. Behemadaka, a light animal like a goat or a sheep, shapashta yadu leichzira, extended his hand but did not bring it back. Psula, that doesn't qualify as pirchus. Why? For this very reason. It's merely an automatic, reflexive action. She'eina elo hitzas nefesh. That's because he's just going out. But if he brings it back in, right, by inference we see that bringing it back in works. Hachzira, if he brings his hand back in, kshera, that does qualify. This halacha has already been taught in our Mishnah. What's the chiddush of Shmuel? Well, says the Gemara, it's not so simple. If only from the Mishnah I would think, I would misunderstand this statement. Perhaps davka de kaifa upashta v'adar kaifala. The Mishnah means like this. Kaifa, initially it was bent. It was pulled back. That was the starting point. Upashta, the animal now extended it, v'adar kaifa, and brought it back in. That works. If it was a two-way motion. Aval pshuta v'kavasa. Suppose the hand was just lying out and he brought it back in. It's just a one-way deal. Loi, perhaps that's not sufficient. Kamash and says yes. So just extending it, that's just a reflexive action. But if it's sitting out and he brings it back in, that retraction works. Meisvei, here comes a kasha. And this kasha relates to Rav, who stated, via his students, there are three possible indicators that qualify as perchus. Goya, the mooing, charging of ray, right, and the air movement. Meisvei comes a kasha from a brisa, which seems to indicate that these things do not tell us much. Rabbi Yossi Omer, he would quote Rabbi Meir, "Hey Rabbi Meir, goya b'shas shchita ain't a perchus. Mooing during the shchita does not qualify as perchus." Rabbi Lazar Yossi Omer b'shmoi further quotes Rabbi Meir, "Afilu tila rei." Even this charging of waist, v'kishkishka biznava, or wiggling of the tail, that does not qualify. These are merely, manifestations of the actual exploration of the. It's not a show of life. It's not a show of vitality. It's a pirchus. We have a double contradiction. Here it says goya doesn't work, versus Rab who says it does. Here it speaks about waist. No, Rab says yes. Kasha, we have a kasha regarding goya over here, a goya over there. A kasha. Next question regarding rei yarei, the waist. Answers the Gemara, there are two variations in each category. Regarding the question of goya, agoya lekasha. The answer is like that. Depends how pronounced his mooing is. Ha de avi kala, if he has a strong, powerful voice, that is a pirchus. Ha de ami kala, the Bryce is speaking where it's a low mooing, a weak mooing, and doesn't really qualify as pirchus. Regarding the question of this charging of waist, rei yarei, nami lekasha, that also can be answered. Depends on the degree. Depends how pronounced. Kam b'shesses, if it's merely releasing, it doesn't qualify. Kam matrezes, but if it's an act of expulsion with power, then it qualifies as pirchus. It's an expression of chiyus and vitality. Okay, so we speak about all different forms of pirchus. The principle, underlying point being that our concern is that the animal should survive the shechita, so to speak. It should have its life terminated by the act of shechita, not just due to weakness and illness. How do you prove that? How do you confirm that? In fact, the shechita was successful if the animal survived the shechita, was deemed to be somewhat alive all throughout the shechita process. And that's confirmed by these demonstrations of chiyus, of vitality, which we call pirchus. Now, We spoke about what pirchus is, how to define pirchus, but what about timing? When is this meant to take place? Is it sufficient to have occurred at the beginning of the shechita process, when it begins cut? Suppose it's a 20-second process, right? From beginning to end of the cut. When is the pirchus happening? At the beginning, is that enough to cover the entire shechita, to indicate that the animal was somewhat alive throughout? Or perhaps do you need the pirchus to take place towards the middle? Only that will prove that, in fact, he had vitality throughout, or perhaps it needs to be all the way at the end and past the end to ensure that, in fact, there was a degree of chiyus till the very last moment. So guess what? We have 3 shittas in classic, Gemara fashion. We have 3 shittas: beginning, middle, or end. The pirchus that we speak about has a time factor to it as well. Timing is critical. B'seif shchita, it has to be at the end. Now, my b'seif shchita, what does it mean at the end? It doesn't mean at the very end. It means somewhere in the middle, as opposed to the beginning, which doesn't count. Be'emtza shchita, lafuki, as opposed to b'tchila shchita, the beginning of shchita does not work for us. Perhaps he expired midway. So you need to have a sign, an indicator, somewhere in the middle of the actual shchita. How do I know this to be true? How do we know that time is a factor? The snan. We have a mishnah. A light animal outstretched his hand during the shechita, but did not pull it back. Psula, or psula, it doesn't really qualify. As we explained, because merely a reflexive action, it's just a neurological manifestation of the misa. It's not more than that. Now let's think. Let's analyze. What time does this happen? At what point in the shechita process did he extend his hand and not retract it? Emas, when? Ilema b'seif shechita. Did it happen at the end? I mean, what do you expect from this goat here? Just keep on moving his hands and feet? I mean, it's over. He's dead, right? Kol heichi. To this extent, Teichi, you expect him to live on, V'tezel, and keep on living? Why can't this in itself be sufficient? I mean, he's sticking out his hand. I mean, how much more do you want him to do after Misa? Apparently it's somewhere in the middle, where in fact he still has vitality, and he could still have enough chiyus to bring his hand back. And the fact that he didn't indicate that it's not enough of a pircha, it's not enough vitality in the animal. Hence, Rav Chizda's proof that pirchus takes place not at the very end, somewhere in the middle. Amalei Rav responds, Lo'elam b'seif shchita. You're telling us, Rav Chizda is telling us that the Chachamim say b'seif shchita, it doesn't necessarily mean at the very end. It just means as opposed to the beginning. But somewhere in the middle is okay. No, Amalei Rav Lo'elam b'seif shchita. Rav is of the opinion, we'll see later, that actually we insist that the pirchus take place at the very end, to ensure, to confirm that in fact it was chiyus all throughout the experience from beginning to end. I'm going to learn that pirchus has to take place at the end. Now, as to your question, how long do you expect the animal to have these movements? Shani Omer, I maintain, yep, even after the shechita is terminated, even after the process is done, if there was a high degree of chiyus till the very last moment of shechita, then there's still something left over in the animal to allow it to do some movement even post shechita, and bring his hand back. Shani Omer kol she'ena oisakein b'seif shechita. If the animal will not do this after the shechita, that tells us, Biyodua, it now confirms for us, Shenishmasa, that its life force, Netula, had been removed, had been depleted, Heimena, from the animal, came before the end of the shechita. Meaning, according to Rav, it spills over. True, the animal is no longer alive, but if there was strong vitality until the last moment, and inclusive, right? That chiyus, that the remnants of that chiyus should be visible and demonstratable, even after the shechita. So again, this is in line with Rav Shita coming up later, that pirchus has to be at the end. In fact, you have to have this pirchus spilling over past the shchita to indicate that there was chiyas till the very last moment of shchita. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Amar, he has a middle of the road shita. Actually, no, he says pirchus can be even at the beginning. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Amar, pirchus she'amru, the pirchus that the Chachamim speak about, b'tchila shchita, it's okay even at the beginning of shchita. The animal shows, the animal demonstrates vitality even at the beginning of the process. That covers the whole process. You know, his chiyus outlasted, right, till the very end. But how do I know this to be true? That pirchus at the beginning is enough. This is not. We have a Mishnah. Our Mishnah. Amar b'Shimon. So let's just refresh it. Our Mishnah. In defining the pirchus process, we have three shittas. First, Ram Gamliel. It needs to be hand and foot movement. We have the middle shitta, which is Rabbi Lazar, who says zinka, squirting of the blood is enough. Chachamim say hand or foot movement. Now, suppose he did shchita at night. He wasn't observing; he couldn't see; it was dark. Did not witness any pirchus. What do we do? Amar b'Shimon. Shur b'layla, k'shechtar at night, l'mochar. Next morning, matzah t'ksalam leim dam. Takes a look at the walls of the neck of the animal, full of blood, which indicates that there was a squirting. K'sheira, then the animal's okay, shezincha, because zinik did take place. Now, you may see a zinuk, but you don't know about timing. You have no idea when it happened. Beginning, middle, end of the shechita, right? Ukimitas Rabbi Lezer is calling Rabbi Lezer, who says that zinka is in fact a show of life. It qualifies as pirchus. Okay? Omar Shmuel, and Shmuel explained on this. We're not talking about the walls of the house. We're speaking about the walls of the neck walls, meaning the place where you do the shechita on the animal itself, full of blood. It's okay. Now, the timing is still unknown. So if you say that pirchus at the beginning of shechita is sufficient coverage on the whole shechita, then good, we're safe. That explains the halacha. Eli amr is b'seif shechita, but if you can insist that the timing is very specific, that the zinuk, the pirchus, must take place later on. How do we know when it happened? I mean, you know what happened, but when? Lechush, let's be concerned. Perhaps the zinuk took place at the beginning of shechita, which doesn't qualify, according to you. That's proof that pirchus / zinka can take place anytime. Even at the beginning of the shechita, that's enough to cover the whole shechita. That proves that there was enough chiyus there throughout. I think we're going to go a little back and forth here, but ultimately we're going to come back to this point that this proves that timing is not of essence. Says the Gemara, 1 second, who says? V'dilma, you're comparing, just like by zinuk, which is the shooting of the blood out of the animal. Timing is not of essence, so likewise, any pirchus, any demonstration of vitality, like movements and contractions, there as well, timing is not of essence. You're comparing. Who says it's a fair comparison? Perhaps zinuk is a more profound expression of chiyus. And therefore, in that specific example of pirchus, timing is not of essence. But perhaps not so by the other ones, which are lower level expressions. Perhaps zinuk is different, it's better, it's higher, it's more powerful. What makes you say it's better? Can you even suggest that it's better than the other, contractual movements? But Tanan, look at the wording in the Mishnah, which indicates that zinuk is actually on a lower level. You know what? You don't have to have hand and foot movement. It's enough. Daya sounds like really it's on a lower level, and that's also sufficient. Dayam zinka. Well, Talmud Bavli, you're right. When he says sufficient, it's because it's on a lower grade than the first opinion in the Mishnah, who requires movement on both hand and foot. Well, different than the Rabbanan, perhaps, but it's still stronger, more profound show of life than the Rabbanan. The third shita, who say pirchus is merely hand or foot. So back to our question, how could you compare? It's stronger, it's a stronger show of force. Amar Avina, no. It's not. Why? Amar li Sama. So who told me this kasha? His name was Sama Bar Chilkoi. He told me over like this. That there was a story, Akshiba, the following person asked the question on this. His name was Avua. He was called the father of his own son. That was his claim to fame. Avua de Bar Avuvram. So the father's name was Avuvram. Maybe it was a twist off of Avram. His son was Bar Avuvram. And this was the father of that son, i.e. Avuvram. Okay? So he was more known by his son than by his own. Avua Bar Avuvram. But Amrullah, some say actually it was Achva, the brother, the Bar Avuvram, of the son of Avuvram. Again, who was perhaps apparently less known than his brother. And he challenged this notion. How could you say that the Zinuk is a more powerful demonstration of vitality with the Rabbanon Yadav? Is it stronger than the Rabbanon? But Tanan, let's take a look at the wording of the Rabbanon in the Mishnah. It's not enough to do just that. You have to move hand or foot. Now, what is that which they are referring to? That's the previous Shita. Right? Rabbanon Hai Kaimu. What are the Rabbanon referring to when they say, no, it's not enough, you have to actually do these contractions? Hai Kaimu. Ilim Adar Gamliel. Are they referring back to the first Shita, Rabbi Gamliel, who requires hand and foot movement, and they're just requiring one or the other? Then they shouldn't say, until this happens. They should say, well, even this works. Keep on. Once it does this, it's enough, right? If they're downgrading, it should be kivan shapirchasa. That's how they should express themselves. Why are they saying ad, which sounds like they're upgrading? No, that's not enough until you do this. Elapshita ad Rabbi Eliezer. Apparently, going back on Rabbi Eliezer, says squirting of the blood is enough of an expression. No, it's not enough. They say you have to actually have physical movement on the hand or foot. Now that disproves our notion. If you're going to tell me that Zinuk is a stronger show, Mayad, why are they saying Ad? Ad sounds like they're going up the ladder. No, that's not enough. You got to go further up. You got to upgrade. Oh, so that lays this to rest. We've now confirmed that Zinuk is in fact not a stronger show of vitality, and in fact, if by Zinuk we proved a timing is not an issue. In fact, you can take a look the next morning. As long as there was Zinuk sometime during the Shechita, it's okay. This forms the basis of Rav Nachman Yitzchak Shita that Pirchas can take place anytime in the experience, even in the beginning of the Shechita. Here comes the third Shita, which was Rav's Shita that we referred to earlier. He says, no, we insist on the Pirchas taking place at the end of Shechita. Rav Amar, Pirchas she'amru, the Pirchas that the Chachamim speak about, b'soif Shechita, strictly at the end. Bottom line, Rashi says, Soif Mamash, really at the end. Sheta Parchas B'Gemar Shchita, at the end of the Shchita, it starts doing the Pirchas, which spills beyond the Shchita experience. That to have a Bachiyas Acha Shchita, you have to see vitality even after the Shchita. Which confirms that it was fully alive until and including the last moment. And then you have these, Pirchas movements, which are sort of a spillover, remnants of that full life, full chiyas that was present until the very end of the Shechita. But otherwise, you never know, perhaps it expired a millisecond before the end of the Shechita. And certainly if it was just a Pirchas at the beginning of the Shechita, that's not going to prove anything. Okay, before we provide sourcing for this Shechita, we have three opinions regarding the timing of Pirchas. Rav Nachman Yitzchak says any time in the Shechita is enough. He proves it from the case of Zinuk. Rav Chizah says somewhere in the middle. Rava says specifically at the end. Amar Rava. Mina aminallah. How do I know this? In order to prove chiyas all throughout, you have to have this demonstration at the very end, spilling over beyond the sanya. We have a brayso. So the pasuk reads like this: Shoyer, return to my base. Shoyrei chesev, oyez ki yivalid. We have a newborn animal. For 7 days, you leave it alone. You don't do hakrava vayishiv asem tachas imoim. Umayayim hashmina v'ala. From day 8 onward, yiratza lekarban shel Hashem. You can technically bring it as a carbon. And the brayso will now analyze word by word including the the extra words in the pasuk, the oy's, right? Shor oy chesef. The oy is coming to exclude. Prat likalai. A crossbreed animal cannot be used for a carbon. Next, oy is, what's the oy? Prat lenidma, as opposed to an animal, which in his appearance does not resemble his parent animals. So he was born from a goat and he looks like a sheep. Ki baled, it has to experience natural birth. Prat le'etzedefen, as opposed to a yetzedefen who was taken out by cesarean, did not experience a natural birth. And we'll see in a minute, including an animal that died midway, did not survive the birth process. That is also considered yetzedefen. It did not really experience a full birth process. Shivas yamim, the mother died. Shivas yamim, prat l'muchas. Okay, less than 7 days old, cannot be used as a carbon. Tachas imay, what does that mean? Prat liyaseh. An orphaned animal cannot be used as a carbon. Now, how do you define orphan? I mean, the animal is 20 years old. His mother still has to be around? Ha yasem echidam. What exactly is a yasem? Ilay with the alid te imay. Are we speaking that the mother gave birth? And then, eventually she died. That's an issue? That's an impediment? La'ilam, you want the mother to live forever? Teichi v'teil, live on. Ela de meisa vadi lidte. Must be that the mother died prior to the birth. Well, for that we already have the pasuk, which disqualifies it. Michi valid nafka. That's the other part of the pasuk. Unless the animal experienced a proper childbirth, a proper birth, that's not considered. So if the animal died prior to birth, the offspring doesn't qualify because of that disqualifying element. Why this new a pasuk of tachas imay? Ela pshita, apparently it must be that the animal, the mother animal, actually gave birth properly, but she didn't outlive the birth. Her death occurred simultaneous to the birth's conclusion. Ela pshita must be like this. It's clear that the case is ze pirush lamisa. The mother animal went off and died, so to speak. Ze pirush l'chaim, the offspring was born alive. So when they sort of parted ways, she died and she survived. In which case, technically, there was a proper birth, which is in fulfillment of the ki valid requirement. That's not an issue. Comes to pasuk, it says tachas imay prat liyasem, that the mother animal has to outlast the birth. Has to have been fully alive all throughout until the last moment inclusive. But if the misa of the mother animal occurred simultaneous to the conclusion of the birth, although it qualifies as ki valid, it was a proper birth, but it's not tachas imay. Because when he's separated from the mother had just died. Okay, how does that pertain to our discussion? So again, let's just quantify it. We have two parts in the pasuk. Ki valid says that the animal cannot have died. The mother animal cannot have died prior or during the actual birth, because then the birth wasn't really processed properly. Tachas imay excludes a case where the mother animal died at the end of the birth. It was not fully alive until the very end, including. So the Gemara will prove from here, Rebbe will prove from this halacha, that when life, chiyus, vitality is required throughout an experience, it needs to be there all throughout, until the last moment inclusive. Hence, by the shechita, you have to have the pirchas taking place after the shechita to prove, to confirm that in fact there was enough chiyus, enough life force present until the very last moment inclusive. That's his point. Yamas b'shleim, certainly if you're going to agree with me that bo'inon chiyusa b'seif leida. For instance, in this case, where the Torah is requiring chiyus, vitality, life, at the very end of the leida, inclusive, meaning that the entire leida experience, the animal had to be alive for that. Hainu dis rekrolim ute. So, as opposed to, if he died simultaneous to the conclusion of the leida, which, as we explained, does not interfere with the actual leida, it was still a natural birth, because the animal was alive till the end of the birth. But since he died simultaneous to the conclusion, you would think that it's a fulfillment of ki valid, and it's okay. Comes the pasuk and says, no, there's an additional layer, additional requirement. He has to outlast the birth. That explains why the pasuk has to come and disqualify this. But it's a special pasuk. It's a new requirement. Again, Kival, it says he can't die midway. Tachas Imay says the mother can't even die at the end. Eli Amars loy beinachisa b'soif leida. But if you're going to argue and say, well, even if the animal died at the very end of the leida, that's enough. If he died simultaneous to the conclusion of the experience, it is counted as though he was alive throughout. So when the pasuk says tachas ime prat liyasim, apparently it's moving back a step and saying, well, that's okay as long as the mother animal didn't die mid-birth, death, that's already been covered in the other part of the pasuk. Because in that case, the offspring did not really experience a full birth. Lamalei, why a new pasuk for this? Michi Yivalid Nafka, it's been addressed by Chi Yivalid. So that proves my point, says Rav. Chi Yivalid says the mother animal can't die midway. Taras Imeh says he can't even die at the very end. He has to outlive the birth experience and only die post. So that proves our point. Chiyus, when it's required in an entire experience, it has to be there till the very end, inclusive, and only die afterwards. Hence, the pirchus required now is sugya. To confirm that in fact the animal was fully alive during the shchita has to be post shchita. Which proves to us that in fact it was full chiyas all throughout until the very last moment, inclusive. Amar Rav Hilchas Akiyam Asnisa, the halacha follows the following brisa regarding defining pirchus. It's pretty much a review of what we learned before, Behema Daka. So depending on what class of animals we're talking about, a lighter animal, a goat, a sheep, requires a greater demonstration of pirchus, because otherwise you can just consider it just a reflexive type of neurological manifestation. Whereas Behema Gasa, a bigger, heavy animal, there even a smaller show of life is sufficient. He extended his hand but did not retrieve it. That's not good. But when is that true? Biyad, on his hand. His hand can just shoot out, and it's just a reflexive experience. But by his foot, which is a bigger, heavier limb, even a one-way show is okay. Bein pashta v'lekafa, whether it extended it without bringing it back, or the other way, bein kafa v'lepashta, or retracted it without extending it, share, it's enough. But mer, when does this apply? When do we require this extensive pirchus, bedaka, by a lighter animal, where otherwise it's attributed to reflex? Al begasa, by a heavier animal, even a one-way motion is enough. Whether a hand or the foot, ben biyad, ben beregel, right? Whether hand or foot, in pashta, whether it's straightened it without bending it, ben kafal pashta, or bend it without extending it, sure, it's okay. Va'if, regarding a fowl, a bird, I feel like if gafa, even if he just shook his wing, v'lekishkish el his nava, wiggle his tail, there's a pirchus that qualifies as pirchus. My kamashmon, what's the point of Rava in presenting this brisa? All this has been included in the Mishnah. Our Mishnah back on the Lamed Zayin. Difference between the hand and the foot and the Behemah Daka, Behemah Gas, right? The Mishnah actually expressed in a very short form, but if you infer and you analyze the wording of the Mishnah, you see all this. It says Behemah Daka, right? The lighter animal, Shepashta Yadav Leichzira, straighten his hand without bending it. That's not enough. Psula. Why? She'ein elo tzeres nefesh. It's merely an expression of his death. So we can infer from here that this minor expression is only because it's the hand, yad in. But regel, heavier limb, even this slight movement is enough light. That's not a problem, that works. Likewise, only daka in. This only applies to a lighter animal, which tends to move around easier. But gasalite by heavy animal, it's not an issue. It does qualify. So all this has been included in the Mishnah, whether directly or by inference. What's the point? It says the ma'if it's strichale. He had to present the halacha of oif as well regarding the wiggling of the litna, which hasn't been discussed in the Mishnah. So that was Rava's main point. In conclusion, an animal which was deemed a musukenes and was immediately shechted to spare it from becoming asr and becoming an avela is technically okay, provided there was pirchus, some sort of show of vitality, where the animal demonstrates that in fact it had a reasonable degree of chiyus left within it, which would confirm that in fact it survived the shechita process and its life was terminated by the shechita itself rather than just the animal expiring midway. We had various types of pirchus, hand, feet, zinuk, etc., etc. In terms of timing, we have three shitas. When this pirchus has to occur, Rava says the end, Rav Nachman Yitzchak says even in the beginning, Chizah says somewhere in the middle. Continues the Mishnah. HaShechet lo yivd kichav. Okay, so you have the sheep which belongs to a guy, and the Jewish sheichet is shechting it for him. It's okay. Even though the owner was a guy, and who knows what he had in mind, maybe he had in mind, to serve the Avodah Zarah, it doesn't matter. Because it's all about the sheichet, and we don't care what. Rav Elazar Paisli says, no, it's possible. In fact, he says it's asr. Because Rav Elazar holds. We assume that the owner, the guy, had his idol in mind, which deems this animal as takrevis, as being served to the Avodah Zarah, which makes it asr. Rav Elazar says even to the extent that afilu shachta le'echel lo yivd gechavim mechatzer kavod shel psula, even if the yid is going to have the whole animal, but he plans on giving the guy chatzar kavod shel, it's just a small portion of the animal. Some say it doesn't mean anything. A kazayis is owned by the guy, the rest belongs to the yid. Psula, once again, disqualifies the animal. Why? Shestam, it's presumed that the machsheves yivd gechavim, the mindset of the guy is la'avodas gechavim for idol worship, despite him not doing anything. It was the Yiddish sheichet that shechted it, but the owner plays a role. He interferes. His plan, his plot, his intent takes effect on the animal. Rabbi Yossi says, no way. He's doing the shechita. He and only he has the only say in the matter, not the owner. Rabbi Yossi kavachemer advarim. I'll prove it with a kavachemer. Uma b'makim shamachshava peselis. Look, even in the Beis Hamikdash by karbanos, where one's thought process, the kohen's thinking, can impact the karban. B'mukdashim, right, by the karbanos. In fact, if he has a machshava of pigul, he says, I'm going to, apply the blood to the mizbeach tomorrow. I'm going to eat the carbon next week. It makes it pigul. So we have a type of carbon which is sensitive, which is liable to improper planning, improper thoughts. Still, who has a say in the matter? Only the kohen, the one who's actually doing the avodah. It all follows the mindset of the oived. The owner has no say in the matter. Certainly, outside the mikdash, you're just shechting a regular CHULLIN animal, malkim, a place she'en machshava peiselis, where machshava does not really disqualify. There's no pigul, right, when it's bechulin. And then certainly, if there's any issue, it can only be done by the actual sheichet. Certainly, it all follows the directive of the sheichet and the owner is not a player. Okay, so we have three opinions in the Mishnah regarding shechting for a guy. Tanakama says okay, Rabbi Eliezer says not okay. Rabbi Yossi seems to say okay like the Tanakama, and here goes the explanation. Hani Tanoi Islo Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yossi. So first of all, we have to know that the first two shitas, Tanakama who says it's okay, Rabbi Eliezer says puzzle, are both following Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yossi, who says that technically even the owner is a player. The Sanya Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yossi, Shamati, I heard from my teachers, Shabalim Mefaglim. Back to the Beis HaMikdash where there's pigul, right? The owner of the carbon can make pigul by way of his thoughts, even though he's not actually interacting with the carbon. So that's the base value, that's the notion, right? That's the starting point. And the same would apply regarding a regular a CHULLIN animal with respect to having avodah zarah in mind. Technically, the guy who's the owner can have that impact. Miu, however, was speaking in a case where you don't know for sure. I mean, you haven't heard the owner speak about this yet. Shall we presume that that's his intention or not? That's the machlok. Miu, Tanakama says it's okay. Isham inei, if you know for a fact you heard the chashav that he has this in mind, he expressed it in, yeah, and it's too bad. Then he can, invalidate the shechita. It will make it usr. Eloi, but otherwise, don't worry about it. If it's unconfirmed, we don't have to suspect that stam, that they presumed the mindset, machsheves of a guy of Chacham is for the sake of idol worship of his Chacham. We don't have to assume that. We don't say that. And therefore, it's presumed to be okay. Rabbi Eliezer Savar, no. Even though you haven't heard, you have no confirmation that the guy is thinking this, he's so much on that track that it's presumed. Stam, machsheves, oived, kechavim is in fact lavitz kechavim, and the animal is asr. I'm reading, that's what we say. Okay, so the first two shitas are based on the notion that in fact the owner can interfere. Tanakama says, unless you hear it openly, there's no presumption. But says there is. Now comes the third opinion, which totally disagrees in concept. Not just in practicality, in concept. It comes and says, no, even if you know for a fact that the Goysha owner expresses it, he has this in mind. It doesn't matter. He's not a player, he's not a factor. At play. The guy is thinking, the year is doing the shchita le'amrina. Whether it's pigul in the Beis HaMikdash or here by the machshava v'dezar, you can't manipulate somebody else's activities. Therefore, the owner is not a player. Okay, that's the first way to understand the machlekes. Again, Tanakama and Rabbi Eliezer both are of the opinion that the owner can impact. Tanakama says, unless you know, don't worry about it. Rabbi Eliezer says it's assumed. Rabbi Yossi says the owner can't have a say in the matter, period. There's another version, another way to explain the three opinions in the Mishnah. That in fact, all opinions are arguing conceptually. In fact, we know the guy has this in mind. He expressed it. There's no question about what he has in mind. The question is about his ability to impact the animal. Tanakama holds he's a non-player. And when do we say that the owner, his thoughts can impact the carbon that the kain is doing? That's specifically in the Beis HaMikdash. We have a pasuk, hamakriv, even the owner is considered a player. But outside the mikdash, such as a regular animal being shechted, over there, the only one that has say in the matter is the actual one doing the shechita, but not the owner. Chutz, what's going on outside the mikdash, such as our store mipnim, from what's going on in the mikdash, we don't compare, we don't derive, we don't compare the two, we don't learn one from the other. So conceptually he disagrees. He says the owner is a non-player regarding avodah zarah. Vasa, Rabbi Eliezer comes Rabbi Eliezer and says, no, we derive chutz from pnem, we compare. And just like in the mikdash, the owner is a player, likewise, over here the guy is a player. And therefore it's us. Vasa Rabbi comes Rabbi Yossi, and he goes to the other side of the spectrum. He says, Afilu b'fnim nami, guess what? Even in the Beis HaMikdash, we don't reckon with the owner's mindset. Rather, strictly the kain who's doing the avodah. The owner is thinking. The kain is doing le'amrinan. Has no impact. And certainly when it's outside the Mikdash, it's a non-starter. And therefore it's perfectly fine. Okay, so again we have this Mishnah where a Yid shechted the behemoth of a guy. What's the status of the behemoth? And Kam says kosher, Rabbi Elazar says it's asur, Rabbi Yisrael says kosher. We have two ways to explain the machlekes. Okay, all the best to you and Hatzlacha Rabbah.